His tranquility is interrupted by a metallic, disc-shaped object descending over the stream. Approaching, Raputz encounters creatures with greenish skin and enormous eyes who quickly become hostile. With a mysterious vapor, his brushes and easel are stolen, leaving him paralyzed and terrified. This extraordinary encounter not only changed his life, but also marked one of the first reports of extraterrestrial encounters in Europe. Prepare to discover the fascinating story of Raputz's encounter with beings from another world in Vila Santina, Italy. In the summer of 1947, Italy was still recovering from the scars left by the Second World War. The small towns and villages were trying to resume normalcy, but extraordinary stories began to emerge from the country's most remote areas. One of these stories involves Raputz El Johan, a landscape painter who had an encounter that would change his life forever. Raputz, a middle-aged man with an unwavering passion for art, decided to spend his vacation in Vila Santina, a picturesque village surrounded by rolling hills, crystal-clear streams, and vast forests. It was the kind of place that inspired any artist, with its vibrant colors and the serenity of untouched nature. However, Raputz did not imagine that this trip would reserve something far beyond natural beauty. It was August 14th, 1947, a month after the famous sighting by Kenneth Arnold over Mount Rainier, which had triggered a wave of reports of unidentified flying objects around the world. Raputz, seeking inspiration for his next series of paintings, decided to explore the surroundings of Vila Santina, especially the stream that meandered through the forest, promising a perfect landscape for his next masterpiece. On the morning of that day, around 9 o'clock, Raputz arrived at the stream with his easel, paints and brushes. The sun shone intensely, reflecting off the clear waters and illuminating the surrounding vegetation. He settled on a flat rock, set up his easel, and began to paint, immersed in the tranquil beauty that surrounded him. As he mixed colors and strokes, something unusual caught his eye. On the horizon, the tranquil surface of the stream was interrupted by a metallic disc-shaped object that was slowly descending towards the nearby clearing. Raputz stopped, brushes still in hand, observing with growing perplexity as the object gently landed on the ground, raising a light cloud of dust. Curious and somewhat apprehensive, Raputz decided to approach. About 50 meters from the disc, he noticed two figures standing next to the object. His heart raced as he saw the beings. They were small, the size of children, with greenish skin that reflected the sunlight in an almost reptilian manner. Their large, plum-colored eyes were devoid of eyelashes or eyebrows, giving them a strange and almost unsettling appearance. The creatures had no hair on their faces, and the shape of their heads resembled an inverted V. They wore dark blue overalls with collars and bright green belts. On their heads, they wore spherical helmets that covered their heads, leaving only their faces visible. Raputz, trying to rationalize what he was seeing, thought it might be a prank by local children, an enactment to amuse tourists. Determined to break the ice, he lifted his brushes and, with enthusiasm, greeted the creatures with a friendly shout. However, what he expected to be a friendly interaction was interpreted as a threat. The beings immediately reacted with hostility. One of them pulled an object from his belt and pointed it in Raputz's direction. Raputz watched, horrified, as a fine vapor emerged from the device, causing the painter's hood to fall to the ground. Moments later, Raputz fell to the ground, paralyzed, unable to move. Still, he could observe every detail of what was happening around him. The creatures, now closer, began to examine his painting materials. Raputz noticed that each of them had 8 claw-shaped fingers on each hand, and that they were panting heavily as they moved, as if they were in constant physical effort. One of the creatures grabbed Raputz's easel, tore one of his canvases, and took the brush from his hands. The painter felt a mix of fear and fascination as he watched the objects being taken back to the metallic disc. Without warning, the ship slowly ascended into the air, lifting a cloud of dust that soon dissipated. Raputz watched, powerless, as the ship shot into the sky, disappearing among the clouds. Time seemed to have stopped for Raputz. He remained immobile for a few minutes, recovering from the shock and trying to comprehend what had just happened. Finally, he managed to get up, feeling shaken but relieved to be alive. He looked around, but the creatures had already disappeared, leaving only the clearing and the tranquil stream. Raputz returned to Vila Santina, where he reported the incident to the local residents. Initially, many thought he was telling a story, to attract attention or to explain the loss of his painting materials. However, as others began to share similar reports of sightings and strange encounters in the vicinity, Raputz's story gained credibility. Over time, the case of Vila Santina became one of the most documented about encounters with extraterrestrial beings in Europe. Specialized UFO publications and books such as Antonio Ribeira's Encounters on the Horizon detailed the incident, placing it among the first well-documented reports of extraterrestrial encounters on the continent. Raputz, for his part, never painted as he did before. The encounter left him deeply shaken, not only by the loss of his art materials, but also by the disturbing reality that we were not alone in the universe. His later works reflected this change, with darker and more introspective paintings exploring themes of the unknown and the mystery of the cosmos. The story of Raputz El Johan in Vila Santina became a local legend, passed down from generation to generation. Summer nights are still marked by conversations around campfires, where the elders recount the day a painter met beings from another world on the banks of the stream. Fascinated children listen attentively, dreaming of what might lie beyond the stars. Years later, Raputz decided to revisit the site of the encounter. Now an older man, he walked along the familiar trails with a mix of nostalgia and apprehension. The stream seemed even more serene, as if nothing had changed since that fateful day. He settled on the same rock where he had painted for the first time, watching the water flow tranquilly. As he meditated on the events, Raputz felt a familiar presence. His heart raced as he saw the same beings emerging again from the shadows of the forest. This time, however, they did not seem hostile. They approached cautiously, observing him with the same large, plum-colored eyes. Raputz took a deep breath, trying to control the fear that threatened to overwhelm him. He remembered the initial fear, but also the curiosity that had led him there. He decided that this time he would approach the beings with more calmness and respect. "Don't you want to fight me anymore?" Raputz asked in Italian, the native language he hoped they would understand. The beings, surprised by his calm approach, did not react immediately. One of them took a step forward, holding an object similar to the one he had used before. Instead of a hostile vapor, a soft glow emanated from the device, enveloping Raputz in a comforting light. Raputz felt a wave of tranquility and understanding. Although they could not communicate verbally, he felt a connection with those beings. They were not enemies, but curious explorers, seeking to understand the world around them. The beings returned Raputz's easel and painting materials as a gesture of respect and restitution. He, in turn, offered one of his canvases, a gift of friendship. The symbolic exchange marked the beginning of a new understanding between humans and extraterrestrials. Over the years, Raputz documented this second encounter in his paintings, creating a series that represented the connection between the two species. His works gained international recognition, not only for their artistic quality, but also for the depth of their content and the story behind them. Vila Santina, once a simple Italian village, became a point of interest for ufologists and curious individuals from all over the world. Despite initial skepticism, Raputz's story and his encounters with beings from other worlds stood the test of time, inspiring countless theories and debates about the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Raputz El Johann spent his final years in peace, surrounded by his family and his works. He never stopped believing in the truth of his encounters and the importance of sharing his experience with the world. His legacy remains alive, not only in the paintings he created, but also in the stories he inspired and in the minds that continue to dream of the unknown. Raputz's story in Vila Santina is a reminder that the universe is vast and full of mysteries yet to be discovered. It is a narrative about curiosity, courage, and the relentless pursuit of understanding, whether through the lens of a paintbrush or the inquisitive eyes of beings from another world. In a world where logic often limits imagination, stories like Raputz's encourage us to look beyond the obvious and to consider the infinite possibilities that the cosmos may offer us. And so, on the tranquil banks of the stream in Vila Santina, the story of a painter and his extraterrestrial encounters continues to inspire and fascinate, keeping alive the flame of human curiosity and the hope that one day we may truly understand the secrets of the universe.